The left-wing cable news network, MSNBC, will soon be changing its name. It will also soon be wearing a false beard and a putty nose in an attempt to disguise the fact it's still the same old crapgeyser of socialist lunacy. The name change comes as MSNBC prepares to break away from NBC News and become part of a group of more obscure networks that will include the Golf Channel, Oxygen, the Sicilian Mafia, and several Mexican drug cartels. From then on, MSNBC will be known as MS Now, with the letters standing for My Source News Opinion World, signaling that this will be the go-to network for people who can't form complete sentences. To come up with the name change, MSNBC executives consulted branding experts at the marketing agency of Blundering Wackoff and Schmo, who have launched such famous brands as New Coke and McPizza, as well as running the ad campaign Blockbuster Video, The Unspooling Face of Tomorrow. Agency leader Prodigious Wackoff recently spoke of the MS Now name change at a gathering of former CEOs at the San Diego former CEO home and soup kitchen. Wackoff told the gathering, quote, "We wanted to come up with a new name that sounded like a cross between a 1980s PC operating system and a fire alarm in a clinic treating progressive diseases. That way we could communicate MS Now's exciting mission of transforming outmoded ideas into a future of crippling decline. MS Now preserves the network's core identity while allowing NBC News to quietly scuttle off into the darkness, pretending they never had anything to do with this horrific crapfest." Unquote. Not everyone is happy with the changes coming to the leftist network. For instance, Joy Reid's show has been canceled, leaving Reid to continue her unique brand of commentary at more welcoming venues like homeless encampments and padded cells. In a recent rant on an imaginary podcast that was really just her standing alone and screaming into the bathroom mirror, Miss Reid said, quote, "Canceling my show was an obvious attempt by the white establishment to silence strong black women who stand up fearlessly for psychopathic distortion in the service of complete ignorance. The fact is, the white man stole all his ideas from advanced black civilizations of the past, like the nation of Wakanda, because the white man has never invented anything himself except advanced black civilizations of the past, like the nation of Wakanda, which, was totally the figment of some white guy's imagination. But other than that, everything was invented by the black people in Wakanda," unquote. But while MSNBC will be losing its status as the sister station of a major broadcast news network, it will otherwise not be sinking any lower because that would violate the laws of physics. So, for example, after the network changes its name, it will still feature Rachel Maddow, though she will also be changing her name and will now call herself Brett Baer in the hope someone will take her seriously. Miss Baer Maddow recently commented on the changes at MSNBC on a media podcast called Former News Networks and Whatever Happened to Them. Miss Baer Maddow said, quote, "MSNBC is needed MS now more than MS ever. Donald Trump represents a fundamental threat to democracy, not to mention a threat to South American gangsters, Islamic terrorists, teacher union pedophiles, dead voters, and incarcerated minority males who are presumed innocent and should therefore be set free to kill again." And when I say not to mention all that, it's because I plan not to mention any of it when I talk about the threat to democracy Donald Trump represents in my imagination, a beautiful fairyland where John Brennan and Adam Schiff eternally walk hand in hand through a dreamlike field of wildflowers and lies. We commentators on the left are running out of time as well as evidence and ideas, and we need to make sure our voices are heard by our audience above the noise of their irrational gibbering and howling. Unquote. Network executives say the new MS Now name should be in place sometime between the end of this year and the moment shortly thereafter when the network disappears completely from our TV screens as well as our collective memories. Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show. All right, we are back laughing our way through laughing and even more laughing. This is the time, this is the moment, this is the very moment has arrived for you to go online and pre-order After that, The Dark, the new Cameron Winter mystery. It is, I think, the best in the series so far, and you can absolutely start with it and then go back and read the rest of the series if you like it, which I guarantee you will. It's been called brilliant by Publishers Weekly. The American Spectator this week put out a review calling it a non-stop thrill ride. Please go on and order it wherever you get books. If you go to dailywire.com/Klavan, it'll be right there, and you can choose Amazon.com or anywhere else that you want to order it. And I tell you, I would love for you to pre-order it because it helps put the book on the bestseller lists, and that will keep the series going. And I would love to keep the series going for at least 10 books. And I think you will I wouldn't say all this if I didn't think you would really enjoy it. Also, leave a comment wherever you watch the show, even if it's just in your dreams. Leave the comment in your dreams. We're perfectly capable of collecting comments right directly out of your dreams. Today's comment comes from James Hayes, 2022, who says, "Thanks, Clay. I listened to your intro in England and an officer overheard. Now I'm due to be shot at dawn." There are many such cases, so you won't be dying in vain. While we get to today's episode, the media's fantasy Trump. And I have to say, before I get started, there are some weeks when the Andrew Klavan Show is the news, and the news is just there to illustrate the Andrew Klavan Show. And this is one of those weeks. The stuff that I was talking about last week and have been talking about for several weeks was just being illustrated by the news. So that's what we'll get to right now. We all know we're supposed to eat our fruits and vegetables, but let's be honest, when was the last time you actually got through 47 different fruits, vegetables, spices, and fibers in a day? I remember when, but it was totally disgusting. Unless you're some kind of grocery store sampler gone rogue, it's probably not something you want to do. That's where Balance of Nature comes in. These aren't your typical supplements filled with ingredients you can't pronounce, unless you've been struggling to pronounce apple. We're talking about actual whole foods here: mango, spinach, turmeric, blueberries, good stuff. Here's the beautiful part. You can take these capsules normally, or you can open them up and sprinkle the powder on literally anything. You're probably not going to do that. But if you want to make your boring oatmeal taste like it went to nutrition boot camp, boom, fruits powder. It's great. Plus, they're convenient and easy to take with you wherever you go. No bags, no mess, no measuring, just clean, quality ingredients ready to go. I use them, because I don't want to get all kinds of juice and stuff down my face, but I still want to get my fruits and veggies. Go to balanceofnature.com and use promo code Klavan for 35% off your first order as a preferred customer. Plus, you get a free bottle of fiber and spice. That's balanceofnature.com, promo code Klavan. And I know what you're thinking. This sounds great, but how do you spell Klavan? It's Klavan. No E's in Klavan. I just make it look this easy. Chapter 1, No News is No News. So the very end of last week's show, I talked briefly about something I find really fascinating and dangerous about the internet information crisis, this kind of flood of information that has no one to parse what information is good and what's bad, coupled with the fact that our institutions have devolved into corruption and lies, so nobody knows which information to trust. And of course, that means that people putting forward conspiracy theories and obscure, ridiculous ideas about history and politics have some kind of authority because they're not any more dishonest than Anthony Fauci and John Brennan. They're basically, the level of dishonesty is the same for all of them. And when you have no information, pattern recognition begins to look like information. So you recognize a pattern, and the pattern may just be total coincidence, or it may be manufactured, and yet it has this kind of punch that makes you feel like, oh, now I know something. So an example of that would be in the chaos of the attack on 9/11 in America, on the World Trade Center. A few reporters around the world falsely reported that a third building, Building 7, had fallen about a half hour before it actually fell. And so you think, wow, that must be a conspiracy. The whole thing must have been a setup. But of course, when you think about it, it's absurd. It means that reporters around the world knew this was going to happen and yet have kept the secret. So it's just ridiculous. It just seems to be a pattern because you don't have enough information. The more you learn about what happened at 9/11, the more it's very clear that it was exactly what you thought happened. It was a terrorist attack on this country. So Anyway, I say this stuff and I go home and I start watching the coverage of Donald Trump's attempts to end the war in Ukraine. And it was a perfect illustration of what I meant by not getting any information but lies. I mean, just being swamped in lies. And, just to give you my take on this, Russia is bad. Putin is a bad guy. He's a really bad guy. And he's a thug. He's a villain. But still, Ukraine should not have been invaded. And yes, sometimes the West did stupid stuff, like invited Ukraine to join NATO without ever letting them join NATO, which was just going to be provocative to a guy like Putin. But still, this is not our war. This is Europe's war. It's not Trump's war. He wasn't involved with it in any way, shape, or form. He didn't start it. He wasn't around when it started. He's surely right that Putin would not have done it had Biden not shown through his disastrous surrender in Afghanistan and the stupidity and humiliation that he inflicted upon the rest of us. Purely Biden's fault. That must have encouraged Putin, I think, to say, this is the time, I want to do this. But it's not our war, it's Europe's war. And while I'm glad our president is seeking peace, I'm glad he's using American power to seek for peace and send Ukraine some support, which we have to do. I do not want one drop of American blood shed for that country, and I don't hold Trump responsible in any way for what happens. I mean, he's doing his best. The coverage of this story has been so absurd, it has been like a kind of cloud. I mean, you have no idea what is going on. And so every theory about it starts to kind of take on this sort of weird authority, as if the news media were trying to illustrate my show. So here's what happens. Just a quick recap of what occurred. Trump arranged with Putin to meet in Alaska to discuss the war. And Trump, before he started, he was very clear. He laid out his goals. Here he is laying out his goals.
We're going to win so much. We're going to win at every level. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. We're going to win economically. We're going to win with the economy. We're going to win with military. We're going to win with healthcare and for our veterans. We're going to win with every single facet.
Zippity-doo-dah, zippity-yay. My, oh my. What a wonderful day.
We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning. Yay! You'll say, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore.
I feel pretty, oh so pretty. I feel pretty and witty and gay.
We have to keep winning. We have to win more. We're going to win more.
All right. It's not my fault. That's what he said. So they meet in Alaska on a red carpet. Trump has a B-2 do a flyover, which is absolutely hilarious. It's like he's buzzing the guy. Trump says, he wants a ceasefire, and if he doesn't get it, he might walk. But according to Marco Rubio later, he said there was enough movement in this conversation so that it went on for about 3 hours. And afterward, they end it without any kind of agreement, which would have been too much to expect. But they end it sort of saying, well, there's, something happened. And then Trump invites Zelensky and the Europeans, our allies, who are very much involved in this and want, Putin to be discouraged from attacking the rest of Europe. That's what they're afraid of. He invites them all to the White House, and they have that meeting. And Trump is always very optimistic and confident, and he says he now hopes to get on the phone with Putin and bring Putin and Zelensky to the table together. So all of that sounds perfectly normal for this sort of delicate kind of diplomacy. The coverage of this thing is so absurd, I can barely put it into words. The New York Times says after the first meeting, Putin has shifted President Trump's attention back to President Zelensky of Ukraine by making a proposal for territory that is fraught with security and political risks. In other words, Putin kind of pulled a fast one and really convinced Trump, who's just following along. He had no way he's doing, so he's just following Putin, whatever he says. Listen to this incredible clip. This is Kimberly Dozier at CNN. They're global affairs analyst. I have no idea what that could possibly mean, having listened to this. Trump meets with Putin, meets with Europe and Zelensky, and then says, okay, I'm going to call Putin and try and get him to meet with Zelensky, right? Until these two leaders sit down together, there's no chance of having peace. Here is how this is analyzed by CNN's global affairs analyst, cut 2.
The fact that he feels he's got to check in with Putin right away and that just as this meeting is taking place, we get news that Putin is saying, by the way, no NATO troops on the ground in Ukraine. That is unacceptable. Still feels like Trump needs Putin's approval in a way that's got to be very disturbing to Zelensky.
What the hell is she talking about? It's a negotiation. The guy's doing diplomacy. What's he supposed to do? Kidnap Putin? So, Putin, you get over here right this minute and talk to us. You know, he gets on the phone to bring the principals together in a negotiation, and he needs to ask Putin's permission. What an idiot. I'm sorry. It's just it's a complete fantasy. It's like they're in a complete fantasy world. Marco Rubio, God bless this guy. He is one of the great secretaries of state. I have never seen a guy just rise into a position as Rubio has done. He goes on all the Sunday shows. They're asking questions. I swear I was blushing for the journalists. I was thinking, how can you be so stupid? How can you go on TV with your face hanging out and show everybody that for all the money you're making at this job, you are absolute idiots? He goes on with Margaret Brennan on CBS and talking about seeing BS. Here is Rubio. It's a little bit of a long cut, but it's worth playing just to show you what Rubio, it's like watching a teacher talk to a child. This is cut 3.
You know, there's concern from the Europeans that President Zelensky is going to be bullied into signing something away. That's why you have these European leaders coming as backup tomorrow. Can you?
No, it isn't. That's not why they're coming as back. That's not true. No, but that's not that's not true. They're not coming here tomorrow to keep Zelensky from being bullied. They're not coming.
That February Oval Office meeting in front of television cameras where President Zelensky.
Do you know how many meetings we've had since then?
Oh, no, I know. And I was just up in Alaska watching the one with Vladimir Putin where a red carpet rolled out.
No, but it was Zelensky. We've had more meetings. We've had one meeting with Putin and like a dozen meetings with Zelensky. So, but that's not true. They're not coming here tomorrow to keep Zelensky from being bullied. They're coming here tomorrow because we've been working with the Europeans. We talked to them last week. There were meetings in the UK over the previous weekend.
And they said President Trump was going to demand a ceasefire.
As early as Thursday. No. But you said that they're coming here tomorrow to keep Zelensky from being bullied. They're not coming here tomorrow. Oh, this is such a stupid media narrative that they're coming here tomorrow because Trump is going to bully Zelensky into a bad deal. We've been working with these people for weeks on this stuff. They're coming here tomorrow because they chose to come here tomorrow. We invited them to come. We invited them to come. The president invited them to come.
This clip goes on, and it's hilarious throughout. Brennan goes on, the red carpet. You put out a red carpet for this horrible, horrible guy. And why didn't you threaten him with sanctions? And Rubio says, once we put sanctions on him, the conversation is over. That's the end of the negotiation. Carolyn, White House Smoke Show, Carolyn Levitt, another one who is just absolutely great at her job. She sums this up. She goes after the media to their faces. If you can find a falsehood in this, you're better than I am, because I just think every word she says, I know she's speaking for the administration, and you don't always want to side with the politicians, but every word she says here is true. Cut 5.
From the beginning of this entire process, much of the left-wing media has been actively rooting against the President of the United States in the pursuit of peace. Initially, the media ridiculously claimed that President Trump was somehow beholden to Russia for even agreeing to have a face-to-face discussion with President Putin inside of the United States. The media said President Trump was making a grave mistake by, quote, legitimizing Putin. They were aghast that President Trump would treat another world leader like a world leader. The media relentlessly attacked President Trump and claimed he suffered a, quote, major defeat for not immediately emerging with a final agreement, even though he said heading into that meeting, this was a meeting to listen and to understand how to move the ball forward. All weekend following those historic U.S.-Russia bilateral talks, we listened to clueless pundits on television trying but failing to claim that the president had failed.
It's absolutely true. The whole thing is true. It's just a fantasy Trump. And the way he's a fantasy, like after this meeting with the Europeans, Putin's kind of in a bad position. Trump has kind of maneuvered him into a place where he might move. He doesn't have to move. He's a villain. He might just stand his ground and keep killing people. We don't know. Trump has no control over that. He's doing the best he can, and then he'll have to put sanctions on him, which he's already doing. But the New York Times realizing that this meeting has gone pretty well and Trump is actually doing a good job at diplomacy, puts out their story is how Europe learned to speak so Trump would listen, because they treat Trump like he's some kind of dumb animal. I used to have this argument here at the Daily Wire. People at the Daily Wire would say Trump is stupid, and I would say Trump is stupid. He rebuilt the skyline of New York. He mastered television, one of the hardest industries to be in at the top of. In one try, he won the presidency, and he's married to a supermodel. I'm missing the place where the stupid comes in. You can say you don't like him, you can say he's doing something wrong, but I'm just missing the place where this guy is a dope, this kind of dumb animal wandering aimlessly through life. So no facts. We have no facts about this. It's starting to come out a little bit because Rubio's going out on the shows and all this stuff. But then you start to have the crazies put forward this kind of pattern recognition. Oh, look, here's the obvious thing. I'm not going to put Candace Owens on the air, but I am going to read I made a transcript of what she said about this process, and I'm cutting it for space, but the sense is, I give you my word, what she was saying. She says, I hope we can all now agree that this is just theater. This whole summit is just theater. This is just what the elites do when their objectives have been reached. And what is their objective in Israel? Ethnic cleansing, right? They've gone masks down on that. What is the objective in Ukraine? That also appears to me to be a very obvious ethnic cleansing. Pay close attention to whoever it is that they move into Ukraine after peace is struck. Gaza, now they've kind of told us, what they're doing there. This is kind of the exact same trick, at least since World War I, likely even before that, and I think we all recognize that the person who has the most power over all our nations, because we have been somewhat globalized at this moment, is Bibi Netanyahu. Of course, he's the boss. He's the big boss, Bibi. And he's going to decide when and if and exactly what moment these wars are going to be allowed to end. That's why I don't take any of this seriously. It all fits together. It's all the Jews. Once you get into that pattern recognition stuff, the Jews are everywhere, because Jews are very successful people. They hold a lot of high positions. And so if you want to blame things on kind of forces beyond your control, they make a very, very good target. Again, I always think that really what people hate about the Jews is that they brought God back into the world, and that's what we're dealing with, and that's what people hate about it. So, my guess, and really I can only guess because I can't gather news any more than anybody else with this kind of fantasy factory going on. My guess is that Trump and Putin are both rational actors acting in what they perceive to be their best interest and their country's best interest. I think Putin is a bad guy, and I think Trump is a good guy. I think that's pretty simple. I mean, obviously it's more complex than that, but not that much more complex. And Trump is a guy who looks at America, and he imagines America in terms of economic prosperity, and war is bad for that. And he doesn't like the killing. I think he actually feels that. And he's up against an imperialist tyrant who's trying to play a weak hand. Putin's in trouble, and he doesn't want his country to become a Chinese gas station, which is what is about to happen to it. And he's fighting. He needs peace too, but he can't surrender. He's got to have peace that looks like victory, and Trump isn't giving it to him. And Trump wants him to save face, so he'll get the peace that he wants. But he's not fascinated with him. He's up against a wily, powerful dictator. And it's like, if Muhammad Ali could move through time and step into a ring with Mike Tyson and was saying, well, Tyson is really powerful and I got to move around. People say, oh, he's fascinated with Tyson. You got to know your opponent. It is just amazing to me, even what I'm saying to you, which makes perfect sense and is not stupid, but it's all guesswork because we don't know. And if we want to know the news, we have to now I'm working about 5 times harder making this show factual than I was when I started out. I used to be able to read a couple of newspapers and know what I was talking about. Now I have to really track down the facts. But the rest of us, all of us, until we are absolutely sure we have something that looks like a fact, we have to make like Socrates and know that we know nothing, so we don't fall prey to the conspiracy people and the crazy people. So here's an embarrassing fact about me. I know you're all dying to know. I've actually been sleeping lately. I don't know what that's come over me. I'm just getting 6, sometimes 5 hours of sleep, which is an amazing amount for me. One thing that may be helping is some of that Beam's Dream powder. Beam is proudly founded in America. It's run by people who share our values, hard work, integrity, delivering results. And it's a healthy nighttime blend packed with science-backed ingredients shown to improve sleep, so you can wake up refreshed and ready to take on the day. And unlike other sleep aids, which I never use, there's no next-day grogginess, just great restful sleep. That's because Dream is made with a powerful blend of all natural ingredients: reishi, magnesium, L-theanine, apigenin, and melatonin. All of them, I looked them up when they asked me if I wanted to do this ad. They all have been shown to help people get to sleep. It tastes fantastic, and it's no wonder Beam has already logged 17.5 million better nights of sleep for people who refuse to settle for mediocrity. Here's the deal. Beam is giving my listeners the ultimate Patriot discount of up to 40% off. Try their best-selling Dream Powder and get up to 40% off for a limited time. Go to shopbeam.com/Klavan. Use code Klavan at checkout. That's shopbeam.com/Klavan and use code Klavan for up to 40% off. I know you're thinking, I know how to spell Beam. How do you spell Klavan? It's Klavan, in case you were wondering. Sleep better, wake up stronger, show up ready for your family, your work, your country, because when you're well rested, you're unstoppable. And this country needs more unstoppable people not stopping. Chapter 2, ICBS. The other part of having no information is that we have no context. And this is partially strategic. This is not accidental. Obama is president for 8 years, but every bad thing he did is Bush's fault. He said this for 8 years. Like the fact that he could not get the economy to move because he's a socialist and he was pouring, he was spending money hand over fist in the economy, even though it was rising back from its 2008 crash. It was not coming back the way it should have. It was not the dead cat bounce that you could have expected. Trump is president, and the Joe Biden administration never existed. It vanished. Now it's Trump's fault that, there's war in Ukraine. Things are Trump's fault that he had nothing to do with. So MSNBC is covering the Alaska summit, and who did they talk to? John Brennan, the former communist CIA chief, okay? And here's what John Brennan says about Trump meeting with Putin, cut 6.
Just looking at the optics, it's clear that Vladimir Putin felt very confident from the arrival in terms of how he was greeted. Again, an international pariah, a war criminal who was basically embraced by the President of the United States on a red carpet in the United States. So I think you could see on Putin's face, he felt very, very comfortable.
So I understand MSNBC is a leftist station. I've always had at least that much respect for them, that they're not trying to be, they're not like the New York Times pretending to be the newspaper of record. They are a leftist station. But why talk to this guy? This guy is a lying dirtbag. He lied and lied and lied. When Trump met with Putin in 2018 and said that Putin had not interfered with the election as the FBI was saying they had, Brennan tweeted, Donald Trump's press conference performance in Helsinki rises to and exceeds the threshold of high crimes and misdemeanors. It was nothing short of treasonous. Not only were Trump's comments imbecilic, he is wholly in the pocket of Putin. So what he was saying was that the Russiagate, Trump was saying, this Russiagate thing was nonsense. And Brennan had created Russiagate, as we now know. I mean, this is the stuff that Tulsi Gabbard, the intelligence head, is bringing out about Russiagate. This stuff doesn't exist in the media. What Tulsi Gabbard is revealing, which is a big scandal. I mean, you can say anything else you want about it. It is an enormous scandal. She now has removed the security clearance of 37 current and former intelligence officials. And here's what the Washington Post says. Continuing purge, Gabbard revokes security clearances of 37 current and former officials. Well, yes, because they did a terrible thing. My favorite quote in the story was, former U.S. officials expressed dismay at the administration's seemingly insatiable appetite for retaliation against perceived adversaries. This is a president who is convicted of a felony that literally doesn't exist. This is a guy, they just overturned the gazillion-dollar penalty that they were going to impose on him for quote-unquote fraud, namely practices that every business in New York practices. They levied this incredible fine on him. That has been overturned by a court, though this fraud conviction stands. This is not retaliation. This is justice. So just to recap, Tulsi Gabbard gave Hannity an excellent summation of what this Russiagate thing is. Here's cut 7.
The intelligence community assessed in the months leading up to that November 2016 election that, yes, Russia was trying to interfere in our election by sowing discord and chaos, but stating over and over again that Russia did not appear to have any preference for one candidate over the other. They viewed both as equally bad for Russia's interest. The big shift that happened around what is now commonly known as Russiagate was after the election. In early December, President Obama called a meeting of his National Security Council leadership. From that meeting, there was directive that was delivered from President Obama to then Obama's DNI, James Clapper, to then CIA Director John Brennan, to come up with a new intelligence community assessment that contradicted the ones that had been produced previously by the intelligence community.
Russia was, of course, meddling. They meddle with us. We probably meddle with them. But they didn't care who won. They just wanted to cause chaos. The chaos was delivered by the Democrats, by Obama and his cronies who said, oh, they were trying to elect Trump, which probably was not true at all. Then they added to that this Steele dossier, which was just a pack of lies, complete pack of lies, suggesting that Trump was in the Soviets' power. Here is John Brennan, the same guy who's on MSNBC now for some reason. And this is stuff that's not being covered at all. It's all on, the focus is only on Trump. He's only after vengeance and retaliation in this imaginary Trump that they've got. Here is Brennan back in the day. This is, I think, in 2020 with the knowing help of Chuck Todd, basically saying that the Trump administration is being blackmailed into obedience by the Russians. This is cut 8.
Based on everything he's done, if he weren't the sitting president of the United States, would you think he was a Russian asset or a Russian agent or an unwitting Russian asset?
There are individuals that the Russians have been able to manipulate and exploit because individuals are concerned about what the Russians might expose that could embarrass and discredit them and hurt them. And those are individuals who aren't assets or agents, witting or unwitting. They are ones who cooperate and collude because of the potential damage that the Russians can do if the Russians decide to come out against them. And that clearly, I think, is what a number of individuals in the Trump administration have been doing over the past several years.
So there's Brennan hinting. Brennan talks the way so that you can never hold anything against him, hinting basically that Trump is being blackmailed into doing what Putin's bidding. Remember the question that Chuck Todd asked: is he a Russian asset or an unwitting Russian asset? Is he a spy for the Russians, or is he an unwitting, or is he for, what is he even talking about? It was all a fantasy. It was all a fantasy. And now that the fantasy is being exposed, and it really is being exposed, they're just not covering it. Yeah, we don't cover it when we wake up from our dream, we want that dream to stay in place. I've said this before, but it is really true. This whole thing about the cover-up of Joe Biden's mental deficiencies, that story itself is a cover-up in the sense that they can admit that. They have to admit that they covered that up because we all saw them do it. It was right in front of us. And even if you weren't paying attention, as most people aren't, even if you weren't paying attention, you saw that that was a cover-up. So they admit that, but they don't admit the fact that everything they said was a lie. It was, the fact that the Green New Deal was called the Inflation Reduction Act, the fact that the idea that George Floyd was some kind of moral character whose death brought judgment on Americans' legal system, the idea that the border is secured. Trump just signed an executive order outlawing debanking, which is where they throw you out. They don't let you bank. You don't let you make financial investments and so forth and transactions because of your politics. And executives, major bank executives, have told Fox News Digital that they were under pressure by the Obama and the Biden administrations to deny services to individuals and businesses for political reasons. We are seeing justice, not payback. Even if Trump is getting some kind of satisfaction about it, it is absolutely justice. And the fact that we are living without that kind of context makes it impossible to actually judge what Trump is doing and how well he is doing. I personally think he's doing really, really well. Losing someone close to you changes everything, and it's impossible not to think about what the future holds. The truth is, most of us worry about whether our families would be okay financially if something happened to us. The last thing any of us want is for our loved ones to struggle with bills and expenses during an already difficult time. That's where life insurance from Ethos comes in, giving you peace of mind that your family will be protected no matter what. Ethos makes getting life insurance surprisingly simple and affordable. Their completely online platform eliminates the hassle of traditional insurance. No medical exams, no lengthy appointments, just a few quick health questions, and you can get a quote in as little as 10 minutes. What makes it even better is that you can often get same-day coverage without ever leaving your house, which means your family could be protected by the end of today. You might be surprised to learn that quality coverage can cost as little as $2 a day, and with Ethos, you can customize your policy to fit your budget while still getting up to $3 million in protection. The company has earned serious recognition. Business Insider named Ethos the #1 no medical exam instant life insurance provider as of March 2025, and they boast an impressive 4.8 star rating on Trustpilot. It goes to show why they've become the go-to choice for people who want reliable coverage without the runaround. Insurance just matters. It matters. It'll give you peace of mind and give your family something to live on if something should happen to you. Protect your family with life insurance from Ethos. Get your free quote at ethos.com/Klavan. That's ETHOS.com/ how do you spell it? It's KLAVAN. Chapter 3, Ross the Savage. There's a comment on YouTube that one of my producers sent over that says, Klavan is speaking too much about motherhood and homemaking. He's not even covering the news. He's not leaving enough time to cover the news, which, with respect, is a typical conservative way of thinking that the news is, some poll about a congressional race in Ohio. But the fact that the human race is dying out is not the news, because it's not happening right this minute and doesn't involve politicians and the president. The fertility rate in the U.S. dropped to an all-time low in 2024. With fewer than 1.6 children being born per woman, when the replacement rate is 2.1 kids per woman. But it's been sliding in America for, 20 years. And, this is a phenomenon. It's a catastrophic phenomenon. Once it gets rolling, it's very hard to reverse it, by the way. And it's a catastrophic phenomenon. Nobody's been able to even address it. And I believe that the reason they can't address it is because the role of mothering itself has been, degraded. People don't respect it at the level they should respect it, which is at the highest level of what human beings do. So Ross Douthat, the columnist of the New York Times, the one sane columnist on Knucklehead Row at the New York Times, did an interview on his podcast, Interesting Times, has gone viral, and probably a lot of you saw some of it. I watched the entire interview, which is over an hour. He interviewed a lady named Noor Siddiqui, who is the CEO of Orchid, which essentially runs genetic tests on implanted embryos. If you have an embryo implanted, they eliminate disease and all this. They get you the perfect baby that you want. And when she was talking about the science of this, there were some certain things about it that were very appealing. You want to eliminate diseases, certainly, what a great thing to do. But when Ross started to question her about the morality of it, does an embryo have any moral worth? If you throw away an embryo, are you saying, well, this person who would have been her own mother had been born with a disease that caused her to lose her sight, would you have kept your mother from being born if you had known that she was going to lose her sight and you couldn't have done anything about it? She then retreated into relativistic nonsense about how you can't impose your morality on others, which of course is simply untrue. You can't protect the weak against the strong unless you impose morality on the strong, unless you say you can't kill that baby just because you have the capability of doing it. And the guy can't say, well, I can kill the baby. You can't impose your morality on me. Yes, we can. So all the while, by the way, this lady, I hate to say this, but it's just true. These leftists, they all have the same psycho smile and those kind of dazed eyes. They're living in some kind of weird place. It's just, you see it on TikTok all the time. It was weird to see it in an interview with this woman who is running this company, this incredible company. So she admits that where she wants to go, basically, is with the full eugenics. She wants basically this to be the way that babies are born and sex is just sex. Here is what she says, cut 11.
I think people will, obviously continue to have sex. I mean, it's a profound source of connection. I think it's just that people will. I mean, it's actually funny. I mean, this quote that I've said of, sex is for fun, orchid, and embryo screening is for babies. It's actually
I didn't want to quote that to you because I thought it was so ridiculous. But go on.
I actually don't. I think it's already true. I mean, already people are having sex much more often than they're having babies. Sex is already for fun and not for babies.
So that's the world she wants. That you just have sex because it's fun, but you make babies in test tubes and they're going to be absolutely perfect. So there was this moment that went viral, and I'm sure many of you have seen it, but I've got to play just a little bit of it because it is to me the clip of the year. I mean, it is just an amazing clip, and it says wonderful things about Ross. But I will then explain to you why this hits you the way it does. It's just amazing. So Ross asks the question: would it be a bad thing to detach the creation of the human race from the act of love between a husband and wife? Isn't there something incredibly necessary about the fact that you make love to your wife or your husband, and then a child is created by that specific act? And to illustrate the point, he reads a poem, a very nice poem by a good American poet named Galway Kinnell, an American-Irish poet named Galway Kinnell, which is about a husband and wife who have just made love, and then a little child comes into the room. And it's about the link between making love, husband and wife making love, and the creation of life. And then he asks her, wouldn't we be losing this? And here it is cut 10.
I'm going to read you a piece of a poem. It's by a poet named Galway Kinnell. And the poem is called After Making Love, We Hear Footsteps. And the idea is sort of contained in the title, that the husband and wife make love, and it wakes up their child, and the child comes and gets in bed with them. And Kinnell writes, in the half-darkness we look at each other and smile and touch arms across this little startlingly muscled body, this one whom habit of memory propels to the ground of his making. Sleeper only the mortal sounds can sing awake. This blessing love gives again into our arms. Sorry. Do you worry about removing or diminishing from human experience that aspect of being a husband and a wife in a relationship with a child?
What do you mean?
What do you mean? What do you mean? And I should mention, when he said sorry there, if you weren't watching, he's choking up as he's reading this poem. He's choking up at the beauty of this relationship between making love, husband and wife making love, and the creation of this child who they then also love. And her answer is, do you think we lose something by losing that? What do you mean? What do you mean? I don't know how many of you have read the book Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. It is a brilliant novel. I think it is a brilliant novel, and I think that George Orwell admitted that it was probably a better look at the future than 1984, though 1984 is in some ways a more literary novel. But this is a brilliant novel. And while you are pre-ordering After That, The Dark, which I'm sure you're doing right this minute, while you're pre-ordering that, you should also order yourself a copy of Brave New World. There are going to be some spoilers in what I say. I'll try and keep it light, but it's worth talking about. Brave New World comes from, the phrase comes from Shakespeare, from The Tempest, which is a play about a woman's virginity and the necessity of the rights and ceremonies of marriage coming before her losing her virginity. That's one of the key themes of the play. And she's been living on an island with her father, and she sees the man she falls in love with, and she says, oh, brave new world that has such people in it. The novel, Brave New World, Huxley's novel, is about a future world where children are made in incubators, just like this lady wants them to be made, and they're made genetically constructed to fulfill roles society needs them to fulfill. And people have meaningless sex for fun. A praise for a girl is that she is pneumatic, meaning she has an attractive shape. She has nice breasts, essentially. But that's all that there is about women. They just have a shape that makes them female. There's no morality attached to sex, no meaning attached to sex, certainly no love attached to sex. But they don't need love because everybody takes a happiness drug called Soma for body, right? Soma, and everything is great. The genius of the novel, though, lies in this. There is a land, the Outlands, where none of this has taken place, and they just live in a primitive way. And when you go and visit this place, it's horrible. It is a horrible place. It's dirty. It's ugly. There's sickness. There's a kind of strange, horrible religion. People are savages. The savage life is not the romantic thing that you see in Avatar or in Dances with Wolves. Savage life is savage, and he shows you that. There's a reason they built this brave new world. That is the thing. And that's, the shock of the novel is you don't want to go back to that world. Just like when this girl talks about curing diseases, there's a reason this is appealing to people. In the Savage Land in the novel, there is one guy who has gotten a smuggled volume of Shakespeare, and he's been reading Shakespeare, and he wants to go back to the modern world because he thinks it's a world of Shakespearean values. And he comes back to this world and he tries to live by these Shakespearean values, chief among which is women's virtue, the idea that a woman is a somewhat elevated person over a man, and by her restraint and by her not wanting to give herself because she has babies, not wanting to give herself to just anybody, she lifts a man to new levels of chivalry and honor as he honors her and as he honors her restraint and this magic property of her body to produce life. And when he finds that women are completely uninterested in his elevating them and completely uninterested in his chivalry, it starts to make him nuts. I mean, he can't believe that this value, which is central to human living, has been disappeared from the brave new world. And it is a beautiful representation in fiction of how many of our moral standards, how many of the things that make us human arise out of women's bodies, how they behave and what they turn women into when they turn them into mothers, and the values that came out of this. Ross Douthat is the savage. The fact that he chokes up as he's reading that poem because it is saying something to this woman that she, with that psycho smile on her face, cannot comprehend. What do you mean? What are you crying about, Ross? It could have come right out of Brave New World. And, I think it was just amazing. And the fact that Brave New World is that accurate is really interesting. Now, the idea that love and creation should be linked is not just a human idea. It is not just an idea about humanity, even though we are taught that idea by women's bodies, by the way we treat women's bodies. I'm sure I've told this story before. Dennis Prager, God love him, I know he's now fighting so hard to recover from this horrible accident he's in. One of the few people I pray for every single day, a wonderful guy. And I remember sitting with him and having a cigar with him, and he was saying, I believe in God for rational reasons, wholly rational reasons, and for that reason, I can't believe that God loves us. That does not make rational sense to me. And I said, then why did he create the world? And there was a pause, and Dennis, who was always and forever one of the most honest people, said, I don't know. Because the idea that love and creation are linked is part of the religious vision of human life. It's part of the vision of God and theology, that he makes the world out of love to create love, and our freedom that he gives us to make bad decisions, to sin, to do stupid stuff, to turn our backs on him, on our creator. All of that he gives us so that we may learn to love, because you can't love unless you're free to love. And so one of the things in our theology and our way of looking at things that the female body teaches us in the selfless and sacrificial love that it creates in women for the children they produce, and male respect and elevation of that female, that femininity, is a reflection of the God we believe who made us the same way for love. And the fact that we learn God from physical reality is one of the most important things we need to know in this era, when secularization is one of the greatest dangers that we face. Every day across America, thousands of women discover they're facing an unplanned pregnancy. Many feel scared, alone. They feel unsure where to turn for help. The statistics are sobering. Nearly 1 in 4 pregnancies currently ends in abortion. That's more than 3,000 1,000 lives lost every single day. But here's what gives me hope. Preborn Network clinics are changing that story one woman at a time. When a woman walks into one of these clinics, something powerful happens. She receives a free ultrasound, and at that moment, she sees her baby for the first time. That simple introduction, mother to child, changes everything. The results speak for themselves. Over 350,000 babies are alive today because of this work. But it goes beyond just saving lives. These clinics connect mothers with faith, provide practical support, and help them choose life with confidence. Take Valeria's story. She came to a preborn clinic convinced she didn't deserve to have a child. Today, she has a beautiful daughter who's already bringing joy to everyone around her. Stories like this happen every single day. That's why your monthly partnership matters so much. For just $28 a month, less than $1 a day, you can directly save a life and restore what truly is a precious gift from God. If you want to be part of rescuing this generation, it's simple. Dial pound 250 and say baby, or visit preborn.com/Klavan. Again, just dial pound 250 and say baby, or visit preborn.com/KLAVAN. Together we can save lives one heartbeat at a time. Final chapter, Christians for Atheism. I was at a dinner the other night at the Heritage Foundation. I love the Heritage Foundation. Just a group of people, about 10, 12 people sitting around talking about the future and what are the things we're hoping for, what are the dangers we face. And several people, including me, believe that the greatest danger is secularism because even though Nietzsche was wrong, there was no God, he was right what would happen when we lost our faith in God. His description of a world of relativism where the strong make the rules was an accurate description of what happens when you remove Jesus specifically you pull the Christian bones out of the Western fish. And reports of a revival of religion are optimistic. There really is no evidence that that's happening except anecdotal evidence. There's no number evidence that shows that religion has been falling off. It's leveled off. The fall has leveled off, but that doesn't mean it won't pick up again. And again, that's another thing that can happen very fast. And there's some evidence that Gen Z spirituality is tied up not in Christianity, but in the occult. So by secularism, I don't just mean that people don't believe in God or go to church. I mean that they live out the ramifications of their unbelief. If there is a God, unbelief, first of all, if there is a God, unbelief is so separated from reality, the major fact of reality, that essentially it means the world is insane, which is one of the things I actually do believe. I believe that the world is acting in an insane way. I mean, when you see Richard Levine, who calls himself Rachel Levine, dressing up as an admiral and saying we have to castrate little boys because all the science shows that way, and he's got no science to show it at all. And I kept saying, this is a guy who belongs, it's like putting Hannibal Lecter in charge of the Food and Drug Administration, putting that guy in government. That shows you that it's sort of insane. The idea that you can remove the things that make human beings human and remain human is crazy. It is just crazy. And then my question is always, what's the point of making the world a better place if it's not better for human beings? And for that reason, I think the way that Christians present themselves is as important today as it was when Paul was writing and saying, do this for Jesus' sake, by which he meant for Jesus' reputation. He didn't tell people to obey the law, for very deep reasons. He told them he didn't want people to think that people who followed Jesus were criminals. He says this. So President Trump said something the other day, and some people got upset about it. Here's President Trump talking about why he wants to bring peace to Ukraine. It's cut 12.
I just want to end it. I want to end it. We're not losing American lives. We're not losing American soldiers. We're losing Russian and Ukrainian, mostly soldiers. Some people, as missiles hit wrong spots or get lobbed into cities like Kiev and towns. But, if I can save 7,000 people a week from being killed, I think that's I want to try and get to heaven if possible. I'm hearing I'm not doing well. I hear I'm really at the bottom of the totem pole.
Now, I found this utterly charming. I find this charming in him. I think it is true that ever since Butler, Pennsylvania, where he was shot at, and not even missed, but missed dying. I think that a new realization that God is there, God is watching us, and has his hand on him, I think has come to him, and he says, I want to solve these problems so I get into heaven, because obviously I'm a sinful guy. And some of the reaction to this was really dour. I mean, it was like, no, you don't get into heaven by works. You get into heaven by faith alone. And the Babylon Bee did it with wit. Their headline was, God agrees to let Trump into heaven if he repents of his sin and trusts in Jesus Christ alone for salvation. That's funny. That's fine with me. But the kind of grim, no, you're getting this wrong. You're just getting this wrong. I mean, even in Scripture, this is an argument. James and Paul disagree about this. And James says, Paul says faith is the main thing, and James says, yes, but faith without works is dead. And that seems to me obviously true, right? I mean, it's like if you believe in gravity, you don't step off a roof. If you have faith in Jesus Christ, you don't behave like a jackass, right? You don't hurt the poor. You have a heart for the dispossessed. I think that is just part of believing in Christ. And I think that faith manifests itself in works, and the faith and the works are like two sides of a single coin. And who doesn't think that I want to do this to please God? Who doesn't think like that? It's a very human thing to think, and I don't believe that that's a delusion or anything like that. So, I mean, just the idea that you would kind of approach this with some kind of, no, my friend, no, don't do good works to get into heaven. That's not the way. It happened to also to Larry Arnn, another guy I really respect, the head of Hillsdale College. And he said something that also got some Christians annoyed, as Cut 13.
Hillsdale College is famous, which is a good thing, almost always. But some mischievous journalist writes, but they are admired by the Christian nation. And and I wrote a letter to the editor, and they printed it. I just said, somebody admiring somebody else doesn't necessarily say anything about somebody else.
That's right.
But if they do admire Hillsdale College, they will learn from it that a Christian nation is not possible, because Jesus' kingdom is not of this world.
People were furious. A Christian nation, they're attacking Larry. He's absolutely right. He is absolutely right. America is the most Christian nation because it is not a theocratic nation. That is why it is a Christian nation. When Jesus said, render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar, unto God the things that are God, he understood that was going to set up a conflict between individual Christians and governors who have to do things that are not sometimes things that we learn from Christianity. If you don't have that, you are not free to form the loving relationship that God wants you to have with him. He doesn't want you to follow him like a slave. He wants you to follow him with your heart. He wants you to follow him because you love him, right? That's why what he is trying to create, more love. As my wife and I used to say when babies were born, we would say, more love, more life. And if you don't do that, you get Sharia law. And it's really interesting to me, in the same way it's interesting to me that Candace is blaming everything on the Jews, Tucker, who is also evincing, I believe, anti-Semitism, in my opinion, that is the underlying philosophy. He is now saying, he's doing an interview with a reporter named Seth Farr, and he says sarcastically, Sharia is bad, meaning Sharia law, the Islamic manifestation of Islam in the law is not a bad thing at all. Is Cut 14.
But you should know, Seth, that the real danger is Sharia law. Sharia law. And you can tell when you go to a place like Abu Dhabi or Riyadh, like, oh man, I hope we don't ever wind up with a society like this with a rate of 0 where you leave your keys in your Lamborghini and don't ever worry about it being stolen. And, if people want to get wasted, they do it at home. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I
hope we don't wind up with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that, Sharia law is obviously just a punchline. I don't know that too many people actually believe in the reality of that. And sure, like I said, I'm a lawyer. I actually studied legal philosophy. Right. Sharia is not that different from other legal codes. A lot of our own legal code, the Anglo-Saxon common law, Anglo-American common law, derives ultimately from religious authorities.
This is what the Catholics call consequentialism, what Tucker was saying, that if you get the right consequences, then the method is fine. He's leaving out, I'm glad Dubai seems to be a well-run country, but he's leaving out, the throwing acid in girls' faces because of Sharia law, beating women if they show a little flesh around their wrists, seriously beating them, executing women for the sin of being all the things that go along with Sharia law, cutting off the hands of thieves, which I'm sorry, actually is a savage thing to do. It all depends on this kind of misinformation, disinformation. And it's just interesting to me that these guys who come out against the Jews end up coming out against the things that make Jesus, Jesus. The thing that makes Christianity, Christianity is yes, the theology, but more important, the words of Jesus Christ and your relationship with Jesus Christ. People got mad at me the other day because I was asked whether you could be a Christian if you didn't believe in the Trinity. And my answer was, listen, I believe the Trinity is a deep, deep theological truth and very important truth. But yes, you're a Christian when you open a relationship with Jesus Christ. And the reason I think so is because Jesus said so. He said, ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives, the one who seeks finds, and to the one who knocks, the door will be opened. So what the hell are you doing when a person turns to Jesus Christ and knocks, and you say, oh, no, don't knock that way. That's not the way you knock. And he asks, and you say, I'm sorry, you asked in the totally wrong way. You've got to start again. I mean, I'm sorry. I think atheists are insane, but I think the Christians who are saying these things to people, who are discouraging people from turning to Christ, from starting a relationship with Christ, I think they're more than insane, because I don't think they believe in God. I think they believe in their religion. They believe in their religion. Who believes that God, if the president turns to him, is going to leave the president alone? Who believes that Christ is not going to shine a light for him to follow? Maybe he's not going to become a theologian. Maybe he's not going to get all the details right. But if he talks to Christ, if he knocks on the door of Christ, the door will be open. How much better will our country be for having a president who has done that? That's the whole deal. A whole deal is love. The whole deal is that relationship with love you have with Christ and the relationship of love you have with people. And if all you're doing is carping at people and bitching at them and using your theology as a club against them, I do not think you are doing it wrong. We preach by living out our faith. We preach by living out our love. We preach by doing the things that we believe will bring us closer to Christ, so that we bring others closer to Christ as well. And I think if there is going to be a reawakening, and I don't know if there is, I've predicted it for over a decade. I've been saying there's going to be a revival. I don't know if there is, but if there's going to be a revival, how about we don't get in the way? Look, if you own a handgun, you know it's been the same headache for years. You either lock your firearm up tighter than Fort Knox and pray you can find the key when things go sideways, or you leave it out where any curious kid can get their hands on it. Neither option lets you sleep at night. Enter the StopBox Pro. No batteries to die, no keys to lose. In the couch cushions, no apps to crash. Just a clever 5-button system that's like having a secret handshake with your gun safe. Practice it a few times and your fingers know the dance, even when your brain's still figuring out what that noise was downstairs. Bottom line, your firearm stays locked down tight, but it's there when you need it, secure and ready. I've tried it out. It really works. It is a really good solution to this problem. Holidays, year-end travel are just around the corner. The StopBox Pro ensures peace of mind with TSA-compliant firearm transport through checked baggage. For a limited time only, our listeners are getting a crazy deal on StopBox. Get 15% off your entire order when you use code Andrew Klavan. And for even better savings, shop their bundles for the best deals on their best-selling products. Check out their bundles and save an exclusive 15% off site-wide when you use code Andrew Klavan at StopBoxUSA.com. Discover a better way to balance security and readiness with StopBox. Here's a question for you. Do you have the DailyWire Plus app on your phone or TV? If not, you should, because when you tap follow under my picture, you will get notified the second I go live or drop a new episode. I personally come to your house. That's a function of the app. If you need to step away from the app, there's no problem. You can jump right back in where you left off. If you want to get something quick, watch my shorts. That's what it says. You can my shorts. But I don't think that's what they mean. I think they mean short videos, but you can watch all those things, and the clips everybody is sharing on social media are right there on the app. And with the Explore tab, every show and every episode is all in one easy to find place. This is where our community actually lives, chatting live during shows, sharing data, sharing ideas, debating big questions. And since it's our app, we can't be canceled, filtered, or censored. Don't just listen, join us. Download the Daily Wire Plus app now in the App Store, Google Play, Roku, Samsung, and watch my shorts. Claven clapbacks.
Secretary of Defense shark attack. You can do better, Ranger Tom! Let's go! Make your country proud!
My God, the media is right. This is a terrifying government. Claven clapbacks, Claven with a K, clapbacks with a K at dailywire.com. Claven clapbacks at dailywire.com. We love to hear from you, so please write in any question you want, religious, political, personal. We will try and answer them as we can. This first one is from James. He says, "Dear wise one, if you did not state your thoughts on St. Paul's teaching about marriage, I would believe that you agree with him by the way you talk about sex. We have an obligation to be in control of our desires as Christians, and St. Paul says to put that lack of self-control into marriage to prevent temptation from Satan. But that is shaky ground. I always feel that you emphasize sex so much, but then I get confused when you disagree with St. Paul, and I feel like you are telling me two different things." I disagree with St. Paul's attitude. I think as a personal attitude, when he says it's better to marry than to burn, and I wish you were more like me, meaning I believe, meaning celibate, I don't see that. I think that the love between a man and a woman is holy. I think it is, yes, of course, we should all be in, whether it's our appetites for food or appetites for money or appetites for sex, we should all be in control of our appetites. Those are fleshly appetites. We want to go with our spirit. And sometimes the two can join, but not all the time. But I've never believed that people who are celibate are more holy than people who are not. I believe that, that the creation of life and the love of man and woman are just very holy states. Now, look, it could be me. That's the way I feel. I would hate to, my relationship with my wife is core to my life. There are things I did in the past before I was married that I regret, but there are things I did in the past before I was married, that kind of made me who I am, and they were joyful at the time, and I don't regret them. So I just feel priggishness is not necessarily part of Christianity. I mean, obviously restraint is, but priggishness I'm not so sure about. So, it's a different attitude, but I'm not a theologian. Don't expect me to get you to heaven. That's not going to work for you. From Michael, good morning. It pains me to say this, but you finally went too far on Friday. To hear you sing the praises of the new Superman movie makes me fear for your eternal soul. Fair enough. Two things that people got wrong about what I said. First, they said, he's softening up in his approach to superhero movies. I have always said, I like an occasional superhero movie. My problem is, A, that they just filled up the theaters and pushed everything else off the screen, that there are just way too many of them, and B, that grown-up men were talking about superhero movies as if they mattered, and I thought that was ridiculous. The second thing is, I saw Superman with my 10-year-old grandson, and if you see a movie with a child whom you love, you will see it through the child's eyes, and I said that in my review. That's what I was talking about. This one I got to answer quickly, even though it's complex. It says, I'm writing to you. This is from Anonymous, seeking advice. I recently found out my father in his late 50s filed for divorce after my mother found out he was having an affair. My mother confessed that this was not the first time he cheated on her, but she could not tolerate it anymore, so she confronted him. I now have to take care of both my mother and my sister because he's not supporting them. My question to you is, how can I still honor him as a parent when he is turning into everything I despise in a man? And the thing is, when the Bible says honor your father and your mother, they mean as your father and your mother. You don't necessarily honor them as people because they may be just absolutely awful people. You are not supposed to allow them to hurt you. You're not supposed to allow them to destroy you. You're not supposed to allow them to draw you into their addictions or their evil or their, passive-aggressive behavior. But, I didn't get along very well with my father, but when he was sick, I was at his bedside when he was, dying, and I did try to treat him with respect a father deserves, even though my personal feelings. We were distant in our personal relationships. That's what that means in this case. I understand that you despise him, and I think that you may have a case, but you honor him as your father. You do the things that you are supposed to do, a son or a daughter is supposed to do, in taking care of a father when that's needed. Just before we go off and you plunge into Clavenlessness, I just have to say a very, very fond farewell to our executive producer, Lisa Bacon. She is one of my favorite people at the Daily Wire and one of the most professional, most experienced professionals. She has made this show so much better. She has helped out in emergencies with incredible calm and skill, and I like her personally very, very much. And I'm sorry to see her go. She got a great new job, and I'm happy for her. And it had nothing to do with anything that was happening at the Daily Wire. She just got a really, really good offer, which she deserves. And but I am just heartbroken to see her go. I'm heartbroken to see you plunged into a Clavenless darkness if you are not a member. It is just a horrible thing to witness. I can't even tell you what it looks like because you can't see it from your end because it's just a blackness beyond my ability to describe. So become a member today. Go to Daily Wire. Can you scroll that up to dailywire.com/subscribe and use code Klavan at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans. dailywire.com/subscribe to avoid the experience you are about to have if you're not a member. If you are a member, come on over to Member Block.